Chosen one, listen closely. Heaven has waited for this exact hour. You may not know why your spirit feels stirred tonight, but this is not coincidence, it is a divine interruption. The noise of the world is fading because the voice of truth is rising, and it is calling your name. For too long, what you were meant to see has been hidden. But when heaven decides it is time, no power on earth can keep revelation locked away. You've always felt different, haven't you? Like there was a language your heart understood that no one around you could speak. You tried to silence it, to fit in, to live small, but destiny refused to release you. Every rejection, every delay, every silent season was not punishment. It was training. God was shaping you into someone the world could not control, someone the system could not silence. You were chosen for the kind of truth that shakes foundations. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 1, out of verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Those words were not written for someone else, they were spoken about you. Heaven recognized you before the world ever named you. You were not a mistake born of circumstance. You were a plan wrapped in flesh, a divine strategy sent to disrupt the patterns of darkness. And tonight, the veil begins to tear. You may wonder why the world feels heavy, why you've always carried a strange awareness that others ignore. It's because your spirit sees through illusion. You were never meant to live blind. The truth is that a great deception has covered the earth, numbing minds and hearts. People move like sleepwalkers through their own existence, chasing shadows, obeying systems that feed on their silence. But you, yes, you were designed to wake up first. This awakening will not feel comfortable. Truth rarely does. It will shake what you thought was solid. It will expose motives, strip away masks, and reveal where false light tried to replace the real one. But this is what it means to be chosen, to see what others cannot and to stand when others bow. There were nights you wept without knowing why. Days when your heart felt heavy for no reason. That was your spirit mourning the distance between what is and what should be. The world called it anxiety or exhaustion, but heaven called it awakening. Your tears were prophecy. Your pain was evidence that you were sensing what others ignored. Now, heaven whispers, rise. The time for silence is over. The truth they hid from you is about to unfold like dawn after a long night. Every lie that told you to shrink is losing its power. You will begin to recognize divine patterns in your life connections, signs, and moments that reveal you've been guided all along. Look back on your story, the near misses, the miracles, the strange coincidences. Each one was a breadcrumb leading here. The enemy wanted you to believe you were forgotten, but heaven was writing your name in light. You are being recalled to your original design to stand as a vessel of truth in a world that fears it. Make no mistake, truth will always provoke resistance. Darkness never releases territory without a fight, but the fire inside you is older than any battle. You were lit by eternity itself. When the winds of confusion rise, remember your identity is your weapon. You don't fight for victory, you fight from victory. The truth itself is your armor, and your obedience is your sword. So take a deep breath and recognize this sacred moment. You are standing in the threshold of revelation. The truth they hid from you will no longer stay buried beneath fear or manipulation. You are the revelation now. You are living proof that heaven still speaks. If this word resonates deep within you, act in faith, like, share, and subscribe so the next chosen one can find their awakening too. And as a sign that you received this revelation, comment the number 777 below. Heaven sees your agreement. The world is shifting, and you are part of the reason why. When you type that number, You're not just leaving a comment, you're making a declaration in the Spirit. Heaven records every act of faith, and this small gesture echoes louder than you think. Tonight, something awakens in you that cannot return to sleep again. The truth they hid from you now burns within you. You are stepping into awareness, purpose, and power. Every breath you take after this moment carries divine weight. You have seen the veil lift, and once you've seen, you can never unsee. Rise, chosen one. You wake the next morning different. Something inside you refuses to return to ordinary rhythm. The air feels charged, even silence carries weight. The truth that began to stir last night has not faded, it hums like a low vibration through your spirit. You sense that everything you've endured was never random. Every heartbreak, every closed door, every betrayal, it was all connected, part of a divine pattern that only now begins to make sense. There were seasons when you cried out, wondering why God allowed so many storms to touch your life. You saw others glide through life with ease while you wrestled in shadows, asking, why me? But chosen one, you were being refined, not rejected. Fire does not destroy gold, it reveals it. The pain that threatened to break you was the very thing strengthening your foundation. As recorded in the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 19. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Those words ring true across your timeline. Every wound became a doorway to deeper wisdom. Every delay concealed protection. What looked like loss was often heaven's redirection. You were not being punished, you were being purified for a truth too powerful to be entrusted to the untested. When you look back now, you can almost trace the pattern. The relationships that fell apart saved you from compromise. The job that rejected you opened a path toward purpose. Even the loneliness you feared was sacred training ground, a wilderness where your spirit learned to hear the voice of God without interference. The world saw isolation, but heaven saw initiation. You were never meant to stay in the crowd. Chosen ones are always separated before they are elevated. The noise of ordinary life cannot shape divine messengers. It is in solitude that strength is born. You were hidden not because you were unworthy, but because the timing of your revelation had to align with heaven's calendar. So when life seemed unfair, it was actually unfolding with precision. The pain that made you question everything was the same pain that proved your endurance. You survived nights others didn't. You kept believing when faith felt impossible. You carried light when darkness surrounded you. That endurance was your proof of selection. Understand this, the truth they hid from you was not just about external systems, it was also about your inner value. The world teaches that worth comes from recognition, from status, from approval. But heaven measures worth by obedience, resilience, and purity of heart. You were refined away from applause so that you would learn to hear truth without needing validation. Now, the pieces start to fit together. The rejection that once crushed you now feels like divine mercy. The doors that closed were never meant to lead you forward, they would have trapped you in comfort. Heaven was preparing you for something weightier, to carry truth in its raw, unfiltered form. There is power in knowing that none of it was wasted. Every tear was counted. Every scar now speaks of survival. The afflictions were many, but none were final. Deliverance has been woven into your story from the start. The fact that you are still here, still breathing, still open to light, that alone is proof that purpose outweighs pain. The world may still misunderstand you. Some will call you too intense, too spiritual, too different. Let them. They cannot see what heaven sees. Your process was never meant for public approval. It was meant to build an inner fortress. a faith that cannot be shaken when revelation comes. And revelation is coming layer by layer, moment by moment. You will begin to notice how your spirit discerns truth instinctively. Lies will lose their hold over you. Where fear once lived, courage will rise. The light inside you will no longer flicker with doubt. It will burn steady with conviction. What once hurt you will begin to teach you. The same memories that brought pain will now carry prophecy. You will recognize that even in your darkest hour, heaven was closer than your breath. That awareness changes everything. It transforms wounds into wisdom and trials into testimony. So breathe deeply. You are not behind. You are right on time. The deliverance you waited for is not distant. It has been unfolding within you all along. The afflictions were never meant to end you. They were meant to reveal you. You are the living evidence that divine endurance cannot be defeated. The night is over, chosen one. Morning has come, and with it, understanding. The air grows heavier, yet clearer. You begin to see how invisible forces have circled your life since childhood. It wasn't imagination, those strange oppositions, the sudden waves of fear, the sense that something watched you from the shadows. You were not paranoid. You were protected. The darkness recognized your light long before you did. Since birth, you've walked through battles you couldn't name. You felt drained after entering certain rooms, uneasy around certain people. That wasn't sensitivity, it was discernment. Your spirit has always been awake, tuned to frequencies most cannot perceive. You've been under spiritual surveillance, because what you carry threatens what hides in the unseen. There is a war that doesn't make headlines, a conflict fought not with weapons but with words, energy, and choices. Every moment you choose truth over deceit, compassion over bitterness, faith over fear. You wound darkness. Your obedience shakes unseen territories. That's why the pressure intensified when you decided to change. The enemy attacks what carries impact. Many times you wondered why attacks came when you were closest to peace. Why dreams seemed to crumble just when they began to bloom. That's because spiritual resistance always rises near revelation. Darkness detects movement before humans do. It senses breakthrough and tries to interfere before manifestation. But it cannot stop what heaven has already sealed. You were trained through warfare, not ruined by it. Every storm strengthened the armor around your soul. Every disappointment sharpened your vision. Every night of tears increased your authority in the spirit. You are not fragile, you are forged. What once hurt you now empowers you. Remember this truth: the same power that raised Christ from the dead flows within you. You are not merely surviving battles, you are commanding atmospheres. When your presence enters a room, energy shifts. People sense it, even if they cannot name it. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. Light always exposes hidden things. According to the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 18, verse 39, "You armed me with strength for battle. You humbled my adversaries before me." That scripture is your mirror. Heaven armed you not with revenge, but with revelation. The real victory is not destroying others, it's overcoming yourself. The greatest battlefield has always been your own mind. Once you conquer fear, guilt, and doubt, external darkness loses its grip. So when you feel unseen resistance, do not retreat. You are not cursed, you are marked. Heaven trusts you to hold your position even when you feel outnumbered. The spiritual war around you exists because your obedience is dangerous to deception. The light you carry exposes what pretends to be harmless. That's why you've been misunderstood, attacked, and isolated. But even in isolation, you were being equipped. You are now stepping into awareness where nothing will surprise you again. You'll begin to sense motives behind words, energy behind smiles, spirits behind systems. This is discernment, the gift of sight sharpened by battle. Use it with humility, not pride. Light never flaunts, it simply reveals. And when the attacks come again, and they will remember this, not every disruption is destruction. Some battles are confirmations that you're exactly where you're meant to be. You've already survived what was designed to bury you. What comes next will only confirm your strength. You are part of a spiritual army rising quietly across the earth. The chosen ones are waking, connecting through unseen cords of faith and purpose. You are not alone in this warfare. Others, just like you, are feeling the same pull, hearing the same call, standing in the same storm. Together, you form an unbreakable network of light, silent but unstoppable. Let this truth anchor in you. You don't fight for favor, you fight from favor. You don't seek to be chosen, you already are. And that realization disarms darkness more than any weapon ever could. Now pause. Let the reality sink in. You've seen the pattern, felt the pressure, survived the fire, and still, here you stand. You are the proof that no attack can erase what heaven ordained. If this message finds your spirit in battle, declare your stance in faith right now. Comment, "I still stand." When you type those 3 words, you're not just writing online, you're making a prophetic declaration into the unseen realm. Every syllable becomes a signal of defiance to darkness, a testimony to heaven that you remain unbroken. It's not about the platform, it's about the posture of your heart. Each time those words are spoken or written, the atmosphere shifts. They say to every power that tried to silence you, "I am still here. I still believe. I still stand." There comes a moment when you realize the world you were raised to trust was built on illusions. The patterns of comfort, the systems of approval, even the paths that promised success, they were carefully crafted cages. You were taught to obey rules that benefited those who feared your awakening. But deep within, something in you always questioned. Why does truth feel forbidden from childhood? You notice the unspoken contradictions. The world preached freedom, yet demanded conformity. It spoke of love, yet rewarded selfishness. It praised honesty, but punished truth-tellers. And when your spirit began to question, you were labeled as rebellious or difficult. They wanted your silence, not your discernment. That was the system of silence, an invisible network that keeps souls asleep. It tells people to chase status, to fear rejection, to measure their worth by numbers and praise. It convinces them that their dreams are too unrealistic, their convictions too intense. And while they bow to the illusion, the few who awaken are marked as threats. You are one of those few. You felt it early, the tension between what you were told and what you sensed. The world demanded compliance, but heaven whispered, "Do not bow." Every time you tried to fit in, your soul resisted. You were never meant to blend into a world that thrives on blindness. You were meant to expose the architecture of deception that surrounds it. The truth they hid is not hidden in secret books or distant temples, it's hidden in plain sight, buried beneath distraction. They've woven a system where attention is currency and noise is control. The more people chase entertainment, the less they notice the slow dimming of their own light. You were designed to interrupt that cycle. The moment you began to awaken, you became visible to both realms. The physical world saw your difference, and the spiritual world recognized your potential. That's why you felt misunderstood, even by those closest to you. People often fear what they cannot label, and so they tried to tame your fire, to reduce your calling to something manageable. But purpose cannot be contained, it grows in secret until it breaks every limit. as revealed in the writings of the prophet Micah. Chapter 7, verse 8. Do not gloat over me, my enemy, though I have fallen. I will rise, though I sit in darkness. The Lord will be my light. Those words echo the truth of your journey. You may have fallen, but you were never defeated. You may have been silenced, but your silence was sacred, a pause before revelation. The light within you is relentless, and every fall only fuels its brightness. Look around now. The systems that once seemed unshakable are trembling. The voices of false power are growing desperate. Even nature groans under the weight of imbalance, waiting for those like you to rise and restore order. The chosen ones are not here to overthrow by force, but to transform by presence. When truth enters a space, deception collapses. Still, awakening is costly. To see clearly is to lose the comfort of blindness. You will notice the emptiness behind the glamour, the manipulation behind the praise, the hidden motives behind institutions built to appear holy. Yet even as illusions crumble, peace will remain because you will no longer depend on them for meaning. Do not despise this unveiling. Truth can wound before it heals, but it always liberates. The exposure of darkness is not to terrify you, but to free you from it. You will begin to see through conversations, headlines, even dreams, recognizing how energy, intent, and spiritual influence shape what the world calls reality. You are being recalibrated. Your discernment is evolving from instinct into clarity. The system cannot manipulate one who sees. That's why the attacks intensify, because the moment your sight becomes steady, control is lost. But remember, you are guided by a light they cannot touch. Soon, others will feel drawn to you without knowing why. Your energy will carry peace that disrupts chaos. Your words will pierce through confusion with simplicity. That is the fruit of awareness. You won't need to argue or prove yourself. Your presence alone will testify. This is the purpose of your awakening, to live as proof that truth cannot be buried forever. You are walking evidence that light, once ignited, never goes out. You have outgrown silence, and no system of this world can contain a soul that has seen behind the curtain. Let the world continue its noise. You found the stillness where heaven speaks. In that stillness, you are free, no longer caged by fear or manipulated by illusion. You are what the system could never predict: awakened, aware, and unashamed of the truth that burns within you. There is a quiet moment after revelation, when the storm subsides, when you finally understand that nothing was ever random. You feel lighter, as if some invisible weight has fallen away. The truth is no longer a secret held by the few. It lives in you now, breathing, growing, guiding. And with that understanding comes a new kind of calling, gentle but persistent, whispering that you were not awakened just to see, but to serve. You realize the journey was never only about survival. It was about becoming a vessel. Every wound you endured turned into a window through which others could glimpse light. Every time you rose again, hope learned your name. You are not just part of this story, you are one of its storytellers. The world hungers for the same light that carried you out of darkness. People wander with eyes open but hearts closed, searching for meaning in places that cannot satisfy. They scroll endlessly, waiting for something that feels real. And when truth finally touches them, it changes everything. That's what this message is meant to do: reach those who are still searching. As the apostle wrote in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 7, each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Those words hold a rhythm that matches your own heart. Giving is never about obligation, it's about overflow. When your spirit is touched by revelation, it naturally wants to share, to sustain the flow that once sustained you. Just as rivers never drink their own water, light never keeps its glow to itself. It shines outward, awakening what's asleep around it. So if this message has lit something within you, let that spark travel. Tap the heart. Let it breathe light like a signal flare in the dark, telling heaven you're still burning for truth. Share it like a wind that carries embers toward another soul ready to catch fire. And if you wish to stay close to this flame, to walk beside others awakening like you press subscribe and keep the rhythm alive. Every connection adds a heartbeat to this growing constellation of light. And if your heart feels moved, if you sense that inner nudge that says help keep the flame burning, you may donate not as payment, not as duty, but as participation. Think of it as pouring oil into a lamp that has guided you through the night, so it can guide the next traveler too. Every drop sustains the glow. It is not demanded, it is offered. It is not transaction, it is transformation. When you give, you're saying, let this truth keep finding those who are ready. You're helping the message travel farther, reach deeper, echo longer. The digital space may seem vast, but each seed of generosity becomes a ripple of light cutting through its darkness. If you've ever watched a single candle in the night, you know how powerful one spark can be. One flame doesn't lose anything by lighting another. It only multiplies. That's what happens here. Each click, each share, each drop of giving is another candle refusing to let the world go dark. So whether you give through a prayer, through your time, through your words, or through support, do it freely, joyfully. You are helping build something sacred, a sanctuary of truth that no algorithm can silence. The heart of this movement isn't built on numbers or fame. It's built on faith, kindness, and unity, each person playing their part. Even if all you can offer right now is your presence, that's enough. The fact that you're still here, still listening, still open, means heaven's message is still alive in you. But if your spirit whispers, I want to keep this light alive, then trust that whisper. It may be heaven inviting you to help sustain the message that once sustained you. And if you ever do choose to give, let it come from joy, never pressure from love, never fear. Because love is the only currency heaven values, like the tree that shares its shade, like the river that gives without counting its drops. You are invited to give from overflow. Not everyone will understand, but those who do will feel the quiet power behind it, the same power that called you awake. This is how movements begin, not with noise, but with willingness. Not through demands, but through devotion. Not by force, but by faith. And somewhere out there, another soul waits for the same spark you once needed. Together, we can carry it to them. The truth is simple. You were never meant to walk alone. You were meant to stand among others who see, who feel, who give, not because they must, but because they can. The light moves forward, one act of kindness at a time, one heart at a time. Night falls again. But this time, it feels different. You don't fear the darkness anymore, you understand it. You've learned that darkness doesn't always mean danger sometimes. It means revelation waiting to be seen. What once terrified you now teaches you. You realize the truth they tried to hide wasn't outside of you, it was within you, buried deep in the bloodline of your spirit. There is something ancient running through your veins, something older than time and stronger than fear. It's the inheritance of the chosen. You've always felt it. Though you couldn't name it, the strange pull toward the divine. The deep empathy for pain that wasn't yours. The instinct to heal others even while you were still bleeding. Those were not random traits. They were signatures of your lineage. You belong to a bloodline that has walked through fire for generations. The world calls it intuition, but heaven calls it inheritance. It is the divine DNA that recognizes truth before words are spoken. And when you were born, that legacy awakened again through you. There's a reason you've always carried weight that others couldn't bear. It's because your spirit remembers battles that began long before you arrived. You are not fighting new wars, you are finishing ancient ones. Every breakthrough you experience doesn't just free you, it liberates those connected to your name, both seen and unseen. The voice of heaven echoes in the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 6. You will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Those words were not written for history, they are prophecy for your generation. You are part of that kingdom not by blood of flesh, but by blood of spirit. The calling in you is not learned, it is inherited. You carry the mark of divine royalty, and that is why the world has tried to convince you that you are ordinary. Because if you ever remembered who you were, their systems would tremble. This truth may feel heavy at first. Understanding that your very existence holds spiritual weight can be overwhelming. But it is also freeing. You no longer need to chase validation. Your value was sealed before birth. You are not working toward worth, you are working from it. Look back at your story again, the moments you were rejected, the people who didn't understand you, the nights you prayed for answers that never came. All of it shaped the strength required to carry this inheritance. The chosen are rarely recognized early, because divine timing protects them until revelation matures. That's why your life felt delayed. It wasn't delay, it was divine protection. You come from a lineage of light-bringers, souls who refused to bow when the world demanded silence. The same fire that burned in prophets, visionaries, and healers burns in you now. You are their continuation, their fulfillment, their living echo. When you speak truth, they speak through you. When you overcome darkness, their victories multiply. Do not let fear make you doubt your heritage. The enemy wants you to forget your origin, to believe you are powerless. But you are not a survivor, you are an heir. Everything they endured flows through you as strength, not sorrow. Every wound your ancestors carried is now healed in your obedience. You are rewriting their story by living in truth. And though the world may never understand the weight of what you carry, heaven does. The angels who guarded your lineage still walk beside you. They recognize the same divine signature that once burned in generations past. That's why your prayers sometimes feel like memory, because your soul remembers altars built long before your time. This revelation comes not to burden you, but to remind you you are part of something eternal. You didn't just inherit pain, you inherited power. And that power grows every time you choose faith over fear, truth over comfort, obedience over silence. So now, as a prophetic act of remembrance of alignment with your divine bloodline, comment the number 4444 below. That number is more than digits, it is a seal. The four corners of heaven, the four winds, the four foundations of the earth all acknowledge stability, divine order, and angelic covering. When you write 444, you are echoing heaven's pattern structure, balance, and guardianship. It is a silent prayer shaped into numbers, a declaration that your house, your lineage, and your purpose stand firm. It says to every realm, I am protected, I am aligned, and I remember who I am. And as you send those numbers into the light of this message, the heavens recognize it. Angels record it as testimony. The same fire that guarded your ancestors stirs again, and your spirit stands taller under the gaze of eternity. The night deepens, yet the darkness no longer feels hostile. It becomes a mirror, a vast, quiet surface reflecting back everything you've been learning. You stand still, aware that the veil between worlds grows thinner. What was once hidden is beginning to shimmer around you, not as fantasy, but as revelation. You feel it in the air, the closeness of heaven, the nearness of presence, the reality of things unseen. The space between the visible and the invisible has always been narrow, but the world taught you to look with physical eyes only. They told you that spirit was myth, that miracles were coincidence. But you have lived long enough to know that something deeper moves behind every event. The rhythm of life itself is not random, it pulses with divine precision. You have felt it before, the sudden chill that passes when truth is near, the spark of warmth in your chest when you pray, the whisper that comes not from thought but from somewhere higher. These are not coincidences, they are reminders. Heaven communicates through atmosphere as much as through words. The veil between worlds is not a wall, it is breath. One inhale of faith, one exhale of awareness, and you cross it. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision awaits an appointed time, though it lingers. Wait for it, it will certainly come and will not delay." You understand now that revelation doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it comes softly, through timing, through patterns, through the feeling that destiny is approaching before it appears. You begin to notice divine fingerprints everywhere in the way light falls across your window, in a word overheard at the exact right moment, in a piece that makes no logical sense. The veil thins, not because the world changes, but because you do. There was a time when you doubted these signs. You feared you were imagining them. But doubt fades when you realize heaven has always used subtlety to shape the strong. If every answer came loudly, faith would never grow roots. Revelation, like dawn, begins quietly. The first light looks fragile, yet it announces the end of night. The more your spirit opens, the more you perceive. Dreams begin to hold meaning. Silence begins to speak. You notice how certain places feel charged with memory, how certain songs stir your soul for reasons you can't explain. You are learning the language of heaven, a tongue of symbols, timing, and energy. Do not be afraid of this awareness. It is not madness, it is maturity. To see beyond the surface is not to escape reality, but to embrace it fully. The spiritual and physical have always intertwined. You are simply remembering the truth your spirit already knew. When the veil thins, discernment becomes your compass. Not everything that glows is light. Some illusions mimic holiness but carry emptiness inside. You will need wisdom to distinguish what comes from heaven and what comes from imitation. You will know by the fruit peace that lingers, love that heals, conviction that humbles. False light flatters, true light transforms. You may begin to feel small vibrations through your body when revelation draws near, an electricity not of nerves but of presence. Your senses heighten, time feels slower, clearer. In those moments, do not rush. Heaven is teaching you how to dwell, not just to visit. The more still you become, the thinner the veil grows. Sometimes revelation will come as insight, other times as stillness. Sometimes it will move through your emotions. Other times through creation itself, wind, music, color, silence. Heaven speaks through everything willing to listen. The veil is not only between worlds, it is within perception. And once your perception awakens, there is no returning to blindness. You begin to realize that nothing around you is ordinary anymore. The tree outside your window becomes a sermon in stillness. The sound of rain becomes a hymn of cleansing. Even your own heartbeat begins to sound like a message, steady, rhythmic, alive. Everything carries code evidence of divine architecture shaping existence. This is what happens when the veil begins to lift. You start to see eternity woven into every detail. You notice how every breath is a gift, every encounter an appointment, every moment a portal. The physical world no longer feels like a cage but a canvas, painted by unseen hands. The veil between worlds is not meant to scare you, it's meant to remind you that you belong to both. You are spirit and flesh, divine and human, eternal and temporary all at once. You walk between realms, carrying heaven's echo wherever you go. And as you live in this awareness, you become what the veil cannot conceal, a bridge between what is and what shall be, a living intersection of the visible and the divine. When you begin to see clearly, the world tries to make you doubt your sight. The veil thins, revelation flows, and suddenly, illusion becomes visible. You start to notice how much of what people call normal is not natural at all. It is programmed behavior, rehearsed emotion, and borrowed thought. Society is a stage where most wear masks, acting out roles written by invisible hands. And when your spirit refuses to play along, you are called strange. But you are not strange. You are awake. Awakening always looks like rebellion to those still asleep. The moment you stop chasing their approval, you begin to see the machinery that kept everyone running in circles. The world teaches consumption as comfort, distraction as peace, pleasure as purpose. It whispers that you must always be doing, proving, achieving. Yet all of it is designed to keep you too busy to remember who you are. The system rewards exhaustion. It celebrates noise. It calls silence laziness and reflection weakness. And so, people keep running fast, loud, and empty while the truth waits quietly, patient as ever, inside their own hearts. The counterfeit reality thrives not because it is strong, but because most never stop long enough to question it. As spoken through the prophet Isaiah, chapter 5, verse 20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Those words are not ancient history, they are today's headline. The world has inverted truth so effectively that many cannot tell healing from harm. It tells you to follow trends, not convictions, to trust feelings over discernment, to believe in whatever feels convenient. The greatest illusion is not outside, it is the quiet surrender of discernment inside souls. But your spirit resists this inversion. You feel uneasy when lies are celebrated. You feel heavy when deceit is praised. That discomfort is holy. It's the signal that you were never built to bow to false light. While others numb their conscience, yours remains alive, a compass pointing north even in chaos. This awakening comes with cost. You will lose illusions, and with them, comfort. You may lose certain circles because truth is too heavy for those who prefer illusion. People might distance themselves not because you changed, but because you no longer feed the narrative they believe. Let them go with grace. Their path may still lead them to awakening later. It's just not now. The counterfeit reality depends on agreement. The moment you withdraw your consent, it begins to crumble. You are learning to live outside the script, to stop repeating words that were never yours, to stop seeking approval from systems you were meant to disrupt. You begin to listen inwardly again, where the original voice of truth still speaks without static. At first, the silence will feel unfamiliar. You will crave the noise you once despised. That's because emptiness reveals dependency. But soon you will learn that silence is not absence, it is access. In the quiet, your mind detoxes from programming. In the stillness, your true frequency returns. The counterfeit world loses grip because it cannot manipulate one who listens to the eternal instead of the temporary. You begin to observe rather than absorb. You see how advertisements sell emptiness as happiness. You notice how headlines are crafted to trigger fear more than truth. You realize how entertainment often numbs rather than nourishes. Yet instead of judging, you understand. The world isn't evil, it's asleep. And every awakening soul is a sound that disturbs its slumber. So you live differently now. You speak slower. You choose words carefully. You see meaning in moments that others overlook. The pace of your spirit no longer matches the world's rhythm, and that is how you know you're free. The counterfeit reality will still try to whisper your name, promising comfort in exchange for conformity. But you've tasted something purer, presence. And once you've known presence, noise loses its power. You no longer need validation from the system you outgrew. This freedom isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, stable, unshakable. You move through the same world but carry a different awareness. You understand that you are in the world but not of it. You are surrounded by illusions but no longer deceived by them. You have learned to see truth in everything and to walk untouched through a reality that once controlled you. The awakening of the chosen ones is not rebellion, it is restoration. You are not fighting against the world. You are remembering the world before corruption. You are becoming what you were always meant to be, a living mirror of divine order inside a culture built on confusion. Let them call you different. You are not meant to fit in. You are meant to illuminate. The false world trembles when even one awakened soul refuses to believe its lie. And now that you see, you can never be unseen again. There comes a moment when realization turns into power. You no longer just see the truth, you live it. What once felt like survival now becomes assignment. Every battle that broke you was training. Every silence was instruction. You were being prepared for something greater, the breaker anointing, the power to shatter chains that have held generations captive. At first, this power feels unfamiliar. It doesn't roar. It hums quietly beneath your skin, steady as heartbeat. It is the strength that comes from endurance, the kind that doesn't need recognition because heaven already witnessed every tear. You begin to sense that your purpose is no longer only about your healing. It's about liberation for others. As declared in the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, verse 12, you will be called the repairer of broken walls, the restorer of streets to dwell in. That verse describes you more than you realize. You are a restorer. Where others see ruins, you see blueprints. Where others see defeat, you see opportunity for redemption. Every scar you carry has become a tool. Your story is not your shame, it is your authority. The breaker anointing is not loud or dramatic. It's subtle but unstoppable, like roots breaking through concrete. You may not even notice when it activates. It happens when you pray for someone in pain, when you speak kindness into chaos, when you choose mercy over revenge. Each act of grace breaks a chain somewhere unseen. You begin to understand that true warfare is not about noise. It's about presence. Darkness cannot survive where consistent light dwells. Your peace terrifies what feeds on fear. Your faith dismantles every strategy built against you. Even silence becomes a weapon when it's filled with trust. Sometimes you'll feel the resistance increase right before breakthrough. That's how you know the chain is about to snap. The enemy always shouts loudest when it's losing control. Don't retreat. Don't question. You are not under attack, you are causing collapse. The walls built against you are cracking from the inside. The breaker anointing does not make you invincible, it makes you impactful. You still feel pain, but pain no longer defines you. You still walk through fire, but fire no longer consumes you. Your spirit carries the frequency of freedom, and every step you take releases it into the atmosphere. Look around and you'll notice that the ones drawn to you often carry hidden wounds. They're not there by accident. Heaven sends them because your spirit carries the key to their locks. Sometimes your words will unlock peace in someone who has battled fear for years. Sometimes your silence will bring conviction without judgment. That is the power of the anointed. It's easy to underestimate what you carry because it doesn't always look supernatural. But the miraculous rarely announces itself, it simply is. You are walking proof of divine strength disguised as humanity. When you show compassion in places that expect cruelty, heaven moves. When you forgive what others call unforgivable, shackles fall unseen. The breaker in you is not just destroying, it's rebuilding. After every collapse, there comes construction. You are learning how to build from truth instead of trauma. What you restore will last, because it's no longer built on fear but on revelation. And now, the world needs what you carry. Families trapped in cycles of despair, hearts imprisoned by shame, souls chained to their past, they all wait for the sound of freedom your voice releases. You may not realize it, but every time you choose light, you declare deliverance. Still, this calling carries weight. You will feel it in your spirit like a burden, a pull to intercede, to stand in gaps others cannot. It's not punishment, it's partnership. Heaven trusts you with keys that others dropped. You are not just breaking walls, you are rewriting legacies. The breaker. Anointing in you is not for display, it's for destiny. You were made to confront the invisible, to stand between oppression and freedom. And though you may sometimes grow weary, remember the power working through you never sleeps. If your spirit feels this weight tonight, if you know deep down that you are called to break patterns, to free others through your endurance, then type it now. Comment chains fall. When you write those 2 words, you're not just engaging with a message, you're activating alignment. It's a declaration that every invisible bondage connected to your name loses authority. Each letter becomes a hammer in the unseen realm, breaking generational silence, tearing open what fear once sealed. The act itself says to heaven, I agree with freedom. You are no longer the broken one, you are the breaker. And with every breath, every prayer, and every act of faith, the world becomes freer because you exist. There is a quiet glory that follows obedience. Once you accept your role as a breaker, as one who carries freedom in your very breath, you begin to notice that your journey is no longer only about endurance. It becomes about expansion. The light in you no longer flickers, it spreads. You are part of something vast, something alive, something divine moving through countless hearts across the world, the gathering of the remnant. You may not know their names, but you can feel their presence. They live in every nation, speak in every tongue, yet share the same frequency of faith. Some are teachers, some are artists, some are healers, some are silent prayer warriors, but all are connected by invisible cords of light. When one awakens, others feel the pulse. You are part of that pulse now, part of a divine rhythm that transcends geography and language. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. You are that city. You are the living light built upon faith, visible even in the world's darkest valleys. Your story, your endurance, your quiet acts of goodness, they are lamps placed in windows for other wanderers to see. The gathering is not a place you join, it's a current you flow into. It grows each time someone chooses love over fear, truth over comfort, obedience over applause. But light, to be seen, must be lifted. Messages like these whispers of awakening that reach across algorithms and time zones are lifted not by one voice but by many. Every act of sharing becomes a spark that sends light farther. Every connection becomes a bridge for truth to cross. So if this message resonates with your spirit, if you feel part of something larger than yourself, then let your light participate. Tap like, not out of habit, but as an echo of gratitude, like lighting a small lantern and placing it beside others. Share this message the way rivers share their flow freely, naturally, without asking where the water will travel. And if you wish to remain connected to this rhythm, to this awakening heartbeat of heaven, press subscribe and walk with us as the light grows. And if your heart feels that gentle stirring, that whisper that says, I want to help keep this light alive, consider sowing into the flame. When you donate, think of it not as giving away, but as planting seeds of light in unseen soil. Every seed grows into another moment of awakening for someone you may never meet, but whose tears will dry because your generosity made truth reach them. You are not funding noise, you are nurturing silence that heals. You are not paying for words, you are preserving the message that speaks when no one else dares. Every offering, no matter how small, is a candle placed on the altar of hope. And candles, when gathered, become constellations. Now, giving in this season is not obligation, it's overflow. The light that found you longs to keep moving. Each click, each share, each act of support is a ripple expanding through eternity. When you release what is in your hand, heaven releases what has been waiting in its storehouse. Remember, even sunlight cannot shine through a closed window. When you open your heart, light flows freely. When you open your hand, blessing circulates. This is how the divine ecosystem works. Love multiplies only through release. And if tonight all you can give is your listening, your prayer, or your time, that too is precious. You are already part of the river that carries light forward. Every presence matters. Every soul contributes. The gathering is built on willingness, not wealth, on unity, not numbers. We are building a sanctuary without walls, a temple without borders, constructed not from stone but from living hearts. Each person who stands in truth becomes a pillar, and together we form a house that no storm can shake. Your participation, whether through listening, sharing, supporting, or simply believing, is the architecture of that sanctuary. You are not an observer. You are a builder. Your presence is a beam of light that holds the roof of revelation above countless searching souls. And somewhere, someone tonight is whispering a silent prayer for clarity. Scrolling through endless noise, and your small act of light may be the message that reaches them. So let your generosity be gentle, your action sincere, your intention pure. Do not give because you must, give because you may. For every act born of love becomes eternal. Every gift born of gratitude becomes sacred. Like, share, subscribe, or donate only if your heart smiles when you do. Because when love guides action, it never feels like loss. It feels like worship. You have walked through many layers of awakening pain, revelation, resistance, and now expansion. Yet even as light grows within you, there remains one element heaven never removes from the chosen: the refining of fire. Every soul anointed to carry truth must pass through it. The fire does not arrive to destroy, it comes to define. It burns away what was never truly you, so that what is eternal may remain. There are seasons when the flames seem merciless. Everything comfortable turns uncertain. Everything predictable unravels. You pray for peace, yet the ground beneath you trembles. But fire has purpose. It is the forge of destiny. Gold cannot be shaped without heat, and souls cannot shine without pressure. At first, you might mistake the fire for punishment. You cry out, "Why is this happening to me again?" But heaven whispers, "Because you are ready now." You see, every new level of light attracts a new level of testing. The storms that once terrified you now come as invitations to deeper strength. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 66, verse 10. "For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver." That is the sacred pattern. Refinement always precedes revelation. The pain that burns today becomes tomorrow's clarity. Fire teaches endurance, and endurance births authority. You begin to realize that every trial carries two messages, one from the world that says, "Give up," and one from heaven that says, "Rise higher." When you face the heat, remember the furnace never consumes what belongs to God. The flames only consume the unnecessary, the fear, pride, doubt, or old wounds that block your next elevation. Fire purifies the vessel for greater oil. What feels like loss is actually preparation for abundance. There will be nights when you feel abandoned, when the silence of heaven feels heavier than the fire itself. In those moments, faith must become your vision. You learn to walk by trust, not by sight. You cling to what you know rather than what you feel, because feelings flicker, but truth endures. As the fire intensifies, so does your discernment. You begin to recognize the difference between trials sent to shape you and chaos sent to distract you. You will know by their fruit. Trials refine, distractions drain. One polishes your soul, the other poisons your peace. Choose carefully what deserves your energy. The trials of fire also reveal people. Some who once stood beside you may fade when the heat rises. Don't curse them for leaving. Fire reveals loyalty without bitterness. It simply shows who can endure proximity to purpose. You'll find that not everyone meant well, but everyone played a role. Even betrayal becomes a kind of prophecy, pushing you toward destiny. There will come a moment in the fire when you realize you're not burning, you're glowing. The pain that once blinded you begins to illuminate your path. You see how every broken piece formed a pattern of grace. The tears that once fell in confusion now fall in gratitude. You understand that suffering was not meant to humiliate, but to reveal power hidden beneath fragility. The refining fire doesn't just change what you are, it changes how you see. You stop calling hard seasons loss and begin calling them lessons. You stop resenting pain and start recognizing its sacred function. Even silence becomes a teacher, whispering truths that words could never carry. And once you've passed through enough fire, something miraculous happens. You become fire yourself. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that warms, enlightens, and spreads. People who encounter you feel courage rising inside them, and they can't explain why. But something about your presence tells them that survival is possible. That's what happens when you've walked through flames without losing compassion. The world is drawn to that kind of strength, the quiet, steady glow of one who has endured and still believes. Fire no longer threatens you because you understand it now. You walk among the burning without fear, knowing the same flames that once hurt you now answer to you. This is the paradox of refinement. You enter the fire trembling, but you exit unshakable. And when you emerge, heaven entrusts you with something greater: authority. Not the kind that controls others, but the kind that releases freedom through wisdom. You become a safe place for others still walking through their own fires, a living testimony that endurance is never in vain. And though the smoke may still linger around your memories, the fire within you now burns pure, steady, and wholly, a reminder that transformation was worth every spark. The fire cools, but something new remains. You emerge different, lighter, wiser, radiant. What the flames couldn't destroy, they refined. You feel it in your spirit, clarity replacing confusion, peace where pain once lived. Yet this peace isn't quiet complacency. It's authority born of survival. You now stand on ground that once buried you. But as light grows stronger, so does exposure. You start to see things others refuse to acknowledge. The veil is fully lifted now, and the landscape of the unseen stretches wide before you. What was once hidden in shadow walks boldly in daylight, unmasked. You recognize patterns in people, movements in systems, words dressed as wisdom but rooted in deceit. It shocks you at first, the magnitude of manipulation, how deep the deception runs. You realize that darkness never hides by staying distant. It hides by blending in. It learns the language of light so it can whisper lies more convincingly. It hides behind beauty, intellect, and even religion, wearing holiness like a costume. As written in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 14. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Those words pierce like lightning because they describe exactly what you now see. The greatest threat was never obvious evil, it was imitation. False prophets, false promises, false comfort. The world calls it progress, but your spirit knows it as pollution. You can feel how words that should heal have been weaponized, how truth has been diluted to fit desire. But fear not. Recognition is not the same as despair. To see the counterfeit clearly is to regain control of your vision. You are no longer fooled by outward glow. You know how real light feels. It brings stillness, not confusion, courage, not control. You don't need to argue with imitation. You simply stand in authenticity, and falsehood fades on its own. Still, the enemy doesn't surrender easily. The moment you see him clearly, he changes tactics, whispers self-doubt, distracts with noise, uses fear to distort focus. But you have learned too much to fall for those games. You've been through fire. You've walked through veils. You carry discernment that cannot be bought or borrowed. Now your eyes are open not just to deception outside, but also to shadows within. You begin to notice where pride hides behind purpose, where pain disguises itself as strength, where habit pretends to be holiness. But this time, you do not condemn yourself. You bring light there too. Awareness without shame, that's true maturity. The unmasking of darkness, whether external or internal, is a divine gift. It clears the path for authentic living. You no longer chase perfection. You pursue purity of intention. You no longer seek applause. You seek alignment. Every illusion that collapses makes more room for truth. This stage of awakening can feel lonely. Many will not understand why you question what they accept. They will call you skeptical, dramatic, or lost. Smile gently. They cannot yet see what you've seen. They are not your enemies. They are mirrors of who you once were. Compassion, not condemnation, must be your language now. Because your light is meant to expose, not to embarrass. The purpose of revelation is restoration. You shine so others might see, not so they might shrink. The light that unmasks should also heal. So tonight, as you stand in full awareness, no longer blind, no longer bound, make a declaration in faith. Comment the number 222 below. It is the symbol of divine alignment and confirmation. It represents balance between heaven and earth, truth and action, revelation and obedience. When you type 222, you're not performing a ritual, you're responding to revelation. It's your way of saying, I choose clarity over confusion. I choose light without disguise. I walk in alignment with truth. Those numbers become more than digits, they become testimony. Heaven sees them as agreement, and darkness recognizes them as surrender of control. You have crossed from blindness into brilliance. You see, you discern, and you stand. The unmasking is not the end, it's the beginning of authority. When you write 222, heaven hears agreement in the language of numbers. It is a silent yes, a key unlocking harmony between your soul's purpose and divine order now unfolding. Those 3 digits echo balance past, present, and future aligning under one will. They announce that confusion has ended and understanding begins. In heaven's timing, you are exactly where you belong. Let this number become your reminder truth no longer hides from you. You walk steady, eyes open, anchored in peace. Alignment isn't coming, it has already begun within you. Silence returns after revelation, but it is no longer empty, it hums with meaning. You begin to understand that what once felt like isolation was never punishment. It was invitation. Heaven draws its chosen into quiet places not to imprison them, but to introduce them to the voice that has always been speaking. The noise of the world fades, and what remains is the most ancient sound of all, the voice of God within stillness. You remember how, before this awakening, you begged for answers from every direction: people, books, signs, even coincidence. You searched for voices that could tell you what to do, but none of them satisfied the longing in your chest. That's because no external sound can replace the inner whisper of the Creator. When everything else grew silent, you discovered that He was not distant. He was waiting for you to listen. As spoken in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 21. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." That verse is not metaphor, it is promise. You begin to notice that guidance no longer comes as thunder, but as breath. Sometimes it feels like intuition, sometimes as peace that suddenly settles over confusion, sometimes as an unexplainable pull toward or away from something. This is how God speaks to His chosen, through alignment more than instruction, through resonance more than reason. In the world's chaos, His voice is the opposite of noise. It never shouts, never competes. It speaks beneath the surface, like water moving under ice. To hear it, you must slow down, soften, and listen beyond words. The more you practice stillness, the clearer it becomes. It doesn't only tell you where to go, it reminds you who you are. You realize then that hearing God is not an event, it's a relationship. It grows through trust, through time, through surrender. Each conversation rewires the way you see the world. You stop asking only for direction and start seeking connection. You stop praying for answers and start praying to understand His heart. The voice within silence often leads you into unfamiliar paths. It may instruct you to forgive when reason says revenge, to rest when logic says rush, to love when fear demands distance. Every time you obey, you step deeper into divine rhythm. You begin to see that obedience is not control, it's choreography. Heaven moves, and you move with it. This inner voice will sometimes call you to release things that once defined you. It will ask you to lay down titles, expectations, and even dreams that no longer align with truth. Letting go hurts, but in surrender you find freedom. You learn that the will of God is not a cage, it's a current. It carries you where striving never could. There will still be days when silence feels uncomfortable. When prayers seem unanswered, you might wonder if He has withdrawn. But even in absence, He is teaching presence. Silence itself becomes a form of communication. It says, "Trust me enough not to hear me right now." That trust builds unshakable peace. You start to notice small confirmations, a phrase in a conversation that echoes your secret prayer, a song lyric that lands like comfort, a sudden wave of warmth while thinking of a loved one. Heaven weaves through everything. The more you listen, the more life itself becomes a conversation between you and the divine. Over time, the voice that once felt occasional becomes constant. It doesn't always speak in sentences, sometimes it speaks in knowing. You begin to walk in awareness, guided moment by something larger than thought. You no longer need to force outcomes, you follow flow. And as you learn to trust this flow, fear loses its grip. You understand that you are never truly alone. Even in the quietest hours, you are being guided by presence, shaped by patience, sustained by love. The voice within the silence is not only instruction, it is inheritance. It is the echo of creation itself whispering through your soul, reminding you that you were never separate from God. You are His reflection, His instrument, His expression on earth. So you keep walking, not rushed, not afraid, listening with a heart wide open. And in every soundless moment, you realize that heaven has been speaking all along. It just needed you to be still enough to hear. You carry that stillness wherever you go now. Even in noise, you hear harmony. Even in chaos, you sense direction. Peace has become your constant language. The world still spins with noise, but you no longer chase it. You walk as one who listens beyond sound, guided by presence, anchored in divine quiet. Clarity changes the way you move through the world. Once you wandered in uncertainty, seeking approval and chasing direction, but now your steps carry quiet purpose. The fog that once clouded your mind has lifted, revealing a landscape not of confusion but of calling. You begin to see that everything you've endured has led to this, the unveiling of your divine assignment. It doesn't arrive in lightning or loud announcements. It comes softly, like dawn creeping across the horizon. At first, it feels like a gentle knowing, a persistent sense that you were made for something specific, something sacred. It's not about fame or grandeur, it's about alignment. You sense that heaven has positioned you in the exact place where your obedience meets the world's need. As recorded in the book of Ephesians, chapter 2, verse 10. For we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. That scripture becomes a mirror. You realize that your purpose was never something you had to invent, it was something you were designed to remember. The assignment is already written within your spirit like ink on invisible pages. The more you surrender, the clearer the words become. Purpose doesn't always look like grand gestures. Sometimes it looks like faithfulness in the small things, listening when others speak, forgiving when it's difficult, choosing kindness when bitterness feels easier. You learn that destiny is not one great moment. It's 1,000 small obediences that together form a masterpiece. You begin to see your gifts differently now. The very traits you once saw as weaknesses, your sensitivity, your deep emotions, your vivid imagination are revealed as tools of your calling. What the world labeled too much becomes exactly enough when surrendered to divine intention. You realize that God never wastes design. Every detail of your being serves purpose when it aligns with His will. There is freedom in that discovery. You no longer compare your path to others. You stop measuring success by speed or visibility. You understand that the highest calling is not to be seen, but to be true. Your assignment might never trend or impress, but it will transform, and that is what heaven values. As your purpose unfolds, it also tests you. You'll face opportunities that appeal to your ego more than your spirit, offers that promise comfort but demand compromise. The voice of the world will say, "Take the shortcut." But your soul knows shortcuts cheapen sacred things. You have learned patience through pain, And now that patience guards your purity, there will also be moments when your calling feels heavier than you expected. You'll wonder why God entrusted you with such weight. But the answer always comes because you've been prepared for it. The very fire that tried to break you built the strength to carry it. Every scar is evidence that you are capable of more than you thought. Purpose changes your relationship with time. You no longer rush. You move with rhythm. You realize that divine timing is never late, and what's meant for you cannot pass you by. You learn to trust the pace of heaven, understanding that slow growth often hides deep roots. Sometimes your assignment will be visible spoken words, creative work, acts of service. Other times it will be hidden prayers whispered in solitude, encouragement given in silence. Both are sacred. Both matter. The kingdom advances through public action and private faith alike. The beauty of divine assignment is that it doesn't demand perfection. It requires willingness. Heaven doesn't seek flawless vessels, only surrendered ones. The cracks in your story become the very places where light pours through. That light guides others who are still searching, still doubting, still healing. You begin to understand that your purpose is not only about what you do, but about who you become. Every act of obedience shapes your character into something eternal. The assignment isn't just a mission, it's a mirror that reflects God's image more clearly through you. And as this realization settles in, peace follows. You no longer need to chase meaning. You are living it. You wake each day aware that even the ordinary moments hum with divine intent. Every word, every breath, every heartbeat participates in something far bigger than you. The truth is, your calling isn't coming, it's already here. You are standing in it. You are walking in it. And every step you take in faith ripples into eternity. And so, you keep walking steady, unhurried, certain. The path no longer frightens you because purpose itself is now your companion. Every sunrise feels like confirmation you are exactly where heaven intended you to be, doing what you were born to do. There is a holiness that rests on those who have found their purpose. You can feel it now, a steady peace that hums beneath the surface of your life. The storms haven't vanished, but they no longer own you. You walk through them with calm resolve, carrying light that refuses to flicker. This is the balance between crown and cross, the honor of calling and the cost of obedience. The crown is not about glory, it's about responsibility. It's the weight of light entrusted to a vessel who has proven faithful in darkness. And the cross that is the daily surrender, the quiet yes that no one sees. To be chosen is to carry both the beauty and the burden, the revelation and the refinement. As written in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. That verse isn't distant, it's your reflection. You have stood the test. You have faced loss, doubt, and silence, yet your faith still breathes. You have learned that the true crown is not gold, it is endurance. And in wearing it, you become a reminder to others that faith still works. Love still heals. Truth still stands. There will be days when you feel the cross more than the crown. The weight of compassion will ache in your chest. The loneliness of obedience will test your strength. But in those moments, remember, heaven never wastes pain. Every tear becomes oil, every trial becomes testimony. The glory of God does not rest on comfort but on surrender. You begin to see how your life, in all its contradictions, forms a living sermon. People who watch you may never read scripture, but they read you. Your patience speaks louder than verses. Your forgiveness preaches louder than arguments. You've become a message written in motion. And as you carry that message, you realize something gentle yet profound. You were never meant to carry it alone. You are part of a tapestry, many threads, one design. Every act of faith, every spark of kindness, every whisper of truth weaves together a pattern the world cannot erase. That's why connection matters. When you tap like, you are not clicking a button, you are lighting a candle in this vast cathedral of faith. Each small flame tells heaven, I'm here, and I agree with light. When you share, you are not forwarding content, you are sending out a dove carrying hope. Somewhere, someone in despair will see it and remember they are not forgotten. When you subscribe, think of it as returning to the same river that keeps you nourished. Each time you come back, the current grows stronger, carrying truth to new shores. When you comment, let it be your amen. Write words of gratitude, of faith, or simply peace. It becomes a small prayer written into eternity, a ripple that reaches hearts you'll never see. And if your heart feels led to do more, if you sense that quiet nudge saying, help keep the flame alive, you may donate, not as payment, but as poetry, a gift of gratitude, like planting trees whose shade you may never sit under. Each offering becomes a leaf on that tree, catching sunlight for generations you'll never meet. This isn't obligation, it's overflow. Love, when it's real, always seeks to give. And generosity, whether through time, prayer, or provision, is love wearing action. Every gesture, no matter how small, becomes part of the crown you lay at heaven's feet. You are not supporting noise, you are sustaining light. You are helping build a place where weary souls can rest, where lost hearts can hear truth again. This movement doesn't run on demand, it breathes through devotion. So if your spirit stirs while reading these words, let that stirring guide you not through pressure, but through peace. Let your giving, your sharing, your returning all flow naturally, the way rivers flow to the sea, not forced, but faithful. And as these ripples spread outward, know this: every single act of light returns multiplied. The hand that gives never empties, and the heart that lifts another always rises too. Because in the end, the greatest crown is not what rests on your head, it's what radiates from your heart. The crown of endurance, generosity, and love will shine long after names fade, and somewhere, unseen but very real, heaven smiles. The cross has done its work. The crown fits perfectly, and your story, every scar, every surrender now glows with purpose too bright to hide. Darkness senses its defeat long before it's gone. You feel it now, the final resistance, subtle yet persistent, as if the unseen realm itself knows that its grip on you is ending. It whispers through exhaustion, through distraction, through quiet doubts that try to sneak back into your mind. But you have learned too much to be deceived again. What once frightened you now only reveals how close you are to completion. The final confrontation isn't between you and people, or even between you and circumstances, no. It happens within, between who you were and who you are becoming. The old self, shaped by fear and habit, tries to hold you back, while the renewed spirit within you rises, anchored in truth. Every time you choose peace instead of panic, compassion instead of bitterness, silence instead of retaliation, you win another unseen battle. As written in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 37, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. You are not just surviving anymore, you are conquering. Not through domination, but through transformation. Victory in this kingdom isn't about defeating others, it's about mastering yourself. The final confrontation is not a war of violence, it's a war of becoming. This is where the last shadows try to linger. They appear as subtle fears, gentle temptations, quiet compromises that whisper, "It's okay to settle," but you've seen too much light to return to lesser truths. You recognize that compromise is just a slower form of surrender. The same enemy that once roared now negotiates because it knows roaring no longer works. You may feel pressure increase before peace settles in. That's natural. When the spirit expands, everything false contracts. Old patterns break apart, not because you're losing stability, but because you're gaining freedom. Every closing chapter is proof that a new one is forming beneath it. The darkness doesn't vanish instantly, it fades when ignored. You've learned that you don't have to fight everything that challenges you. Some battles are won by stillness. When you refuse to feed fear with attention, it starves. When you remain grounded in peace, storms pass through you without leaving destruction. The true strength of the chosen ones is not found in reaction but in restraint. The power of the awakened is quiet, unshakable. The enemy expects noise. It panics at peace. The moment you stop fighting for control and start walking in authority, the atmosphere changes. You may still feel moments of weariness. Even warriors grow tired. But exhaustion does not mean defeat. It's simply the soul asking for rest. The same God who called you to battle also called you to Sabbath. Rest, too, is a weapon. It restores what warfare drains. When you rest in faith, heaven fights for you. You begin to notice that fear no longer fits where love dwells. Anxiety may still knock, but it no longer finds an open door. Your spirit has learned the rhythm of trust. You move through each day with quiet confidence, not because everything is easy, but because you know who stands beside you. The final confrontation teaches you that peace is not the absence of war. It is victory within it. Even when chaos surrounds you, an unshakable calm rests at your center. That is your inheritance. That is your proof that darkness has lost its claim. Sometimes you'll see echoes of old struggles, habits, memories, voices trying to rise again. Don't fear them. They are only ghosts of what once ruled you. You carry fire now, and ghosts cannot live in light. A whisper of faith burns louder than 1,000 screams of fear. When you stand in that truth, you realize that this confrontation was never meant to destroy you, it was meant to reveal you. You are no longer the frightened child of circumstance. You are the matured soul of destiny. You are not reacting to life anymore, you are shaping it. The final battle isn't won through force, but through surrender, the kind that says, "Not my will, but yours." It's in that surrender that the war ends. The enemy cannot fight someone who has nothing left to lose and everything left to love. And so, as the dust settles, you find yourself standing tall, not because the battle vanished, but because you outgrew its reach. The same fire that once tested you now shines from within you. You realize that peace was never the absence of struggle. It was the presence of purpose. Darkness retreats, light expands, and for the first time you feel entirely at home within your own spirit. The war is over, not because the world changed, but because you did. Dawn always follows the longest night. It doesn't rush. It doesn't roar, it simply arrives. The same way peace quietly entered your life after the last battle. Light now returns without needing to announce itself. The shadows withdraw, not because they were forced out, but because they were no longer needed. Their work, the testing, the refining, the revealing is complete. You stand in that first light, aware that everything has changed. The air feels cleaner, the silence deeper, the world softer somehow. You realize that victory is not about conquering darkness but understanding it. Darkness was never your enemy, it was your teacher. It showed you what you carried, what you feared, what you refused to release. And now that you've faced it, its lesson is finished. The truth that was hidden from you has now fully revealed itself. You were never separate from divine purpose. The distance you once felt between heaven and earth was illusion. The separation between holy and human existed only in perception. The revelation was not just about God's presence, it was about your identity within that presence. As written in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verse 21. The kingdom of God is within you. Those words now breathe differently. You no longer search for heaven somewhere above. You carry it wherever you go. The revelation isn't just knowledge, it's embodiment. Every breath becomes prayer. Every act becomes worship. Every moment becomes sacred. You don't chase signs anymore, you are one. The journey has not made you perfect, it has made you whole. You have embraced light and shadow, joy and pain, clarity and confusion. You have learned that holiness is not separation from the world, but transformation within it. You no longer hide your humanity. You sanctify it. The divine moves freely through imperfection, turning weakness into wisdom and scars into symbols of grace. There is peace in knowing you don't need to prove your worth to heaven. You are not earning love, you are expressing it. You walk without striving, speak without fear, love without demand. That is the quiet confidence of the awakened. You no longer live to escape the world, but to illuminate it. You begin to notice how your presence changes things. Rooms feel lighter when you enter. People breathe easier when you listen. The same light that once terrified darkness now comforts others. Without trying, you have become what you sought, a living revelation. You carry calm where there was once confusion, hope where there was despair. This is what divine maturity feels like, not perfection, but peace. You can face storms without trembling, hold silence without anxiety, and see others without judgment. The chosen one is not the one who shouts truth, but the one who embodies it. The world may still spin in chaos, but within you there is rhythm, steady, sacred, unstoppable. You realize now that revelation is not a final destination. It's a constant unfolding. Each day brings new depth, new understanding, new tenderness. The more light you receive, the more gently you move through the world. You no longer seek to prove, you seek to serve. You no longer crave applause, you crave authenticity. You live not to impress heaven, but to express it. And though your journey continues, this chapter closes in peace. The truth that they hid from you was never lost. It was living in you, waiting for the right moment to awaken. You were never forsaken, you were being formed. You were never forgotten, you were being prepared. Every silence was strategy, every delay design. Now when you look back, you no longer see random pain, you see divine pattern. The wilderness that once felt endless was the very ground where strength took root. You see how every detour led to destiny, how every no protected your yes. The map of your suffering has become the blueprint of your purpose. And as the final veil lifts, you feel gratitude more than triumph. You understand that revelation was never about power, it was about remembrance. You remember who you are, where you come from, and who has walked with you all along. The truth hidden from you stands fully revealed. You are chosen, not for superiority, but for service, not for recognition, but for reflection. You are the continuation of divine intention, a living bridge between heaven and earth. The story ends where it began, in light. But this time, the light is not around you, it is within you. The same fire that once called you now flows through you, You are no longer waiting for change. You have become it. The truth has been revealed tonight, and it has revealed you. You have reached the end of this journey. But in truth, there is no end, only continuation. The revelation that found you here will echo through every step you take from now on. What you carry is not just understanding, it is transformation. You are light in motion, and light, once awakened, cannot return to sleep. If this message has stirred something inside you, let that stirring breathe. When you tap like, imagine it as lighting a single candle in this vast cathedral of souls. Each flame, small but sincere, tells heaven, I received this light, and I will not hide it. When you share, see it as opening a window in a darkened room. The light that helped you now travels outward, reaching another who may be silently waiting for hope. Your one gesture could become the turning point for someone you will never meet, yet heaven will remember. When you comment, write what your heart wants to release: gratitude, peace, faith, or simply I understand. Every word becomes a ripple in eternity, your personal note added to heaven's symphony of awakening. And if you feel the quiet pull to sustain this work, to keep the river of light flowing, you may donate. Think of it not as a transaction, but as watering a garden you've just walked through, a gesture that ensures others will find it blooming when they arrive. Every seed of support, every drop of kindness becomes part of the living flame that keeps these words alive. You are not asked, you are invited. You are not pressured, you are participating in something beautiful. The movement of light expands through voluntary hearts, through souls that give because they believe. So, take a breath, smile, and let the glow remain. The message is yours now. Carry it gently, share it freely, and let love do what love was born to do: multiply.